housekeeping points for everyone. Since we are connected virtually, some of you, depending on your internet connection, might experience some latency, so please account for it. Please respect the speakers at all times, and I would urge all of our guests and panelists to kindly keep themselves on mute unless you are speaking. We also have a team of international sign language interpreters with us. We have Mr. Arun C. Rao and Mr. Saurav Roy Chaudhary. For them to be able to interpret efficiently, we request all of our participants to speak at a steady pace. To support us with live captions, we are joined by Ms. Amy Lee and Mr. Andrew Hansen. Please select show subtitle on the closed caption or more menu to access the live captioning. To view the full transcript, please go to the link that has been provided in the chat box below. We encourage our participants to actively participate in the conversations and in the discussions that are ongoing. So please keep the chat box busy. And lastly, a humble request to our speakers and panelists to please adhere to the time limit so that we are able to close the session by 7:15 Indian Standard Time, which is 9:45 Eastern Standard Time. Well, that's out of the way. To get the ball rolling today, I would first call upon our very own Mr. D. Ajay Suri. He is the head of the Inclusive Cities Center and the senior advisor at the National Institute of Urban Affairs, to welcome our esteemed guests. In case if you don't know Mr. Suri, he is an economist and has been a prominent figure in the development sector for a very long time. He has worked with the United Nations and World Bank in different positions over a different period of time, and he has extremely long tenure working with India and the Global South. Mr. Suri, over to you.
Thanks, Utsav, for the kind introduction. On behalf of the National Institute of Urban Affairs, I join Utsav to welcome all of you to this dialogue on technological innovation for all. We are pleased to partner with the United Nations, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, Government of India, UN Partnership on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, UNPRPD, World Health Organization, Barrier Break, Social Alpha, Rising Flame, Friends for Inclusion, and Tinkerbell Labs. I express our gratitude to all the partners. I extend a warm welcome to the dignitaries, Mr. Shambi Sharp, UN Resident Coordinator in India, Mr. Hitesh Vaidya, Director, National Institute of Urban Affairs, Ms. Ritu Sen, Director General, National Anti-Doping Agency, Department of Sports, Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, Government of India, Mr. Chapal Khosnabis, Head of the Access to Assistive Technology and Medical Devices Unit, World Health Organization, Geneva, and Ms. Srirupa Mitra, Program Specialist, UNPRPD. This session today is to discuss the need for a shift from technology-centric development to people-centric design or universal design following a participatory approach. We have a very lustrous panel with us today to discuss the policy gaps and sectoral challenges, as well as to propose strategies for enhancing the ecosystem for inclusive and accessible technology in various sectors such as education, employment, city development, sports, health, and rehabilitation. I welcome the panelists, Mr. Ankit Rajiv Jindal, Marketing Advisor at NTT Data and founder of Friends for Inclusion and Signer.ai, Ms. Nidhi Goyal, founder and director, Rising Flame, Ms. Ankita Rajesh Shirodharia, lead Assistive Technology, Social Alpha, Ms. Shilpi Kapoor, CEO, Barrier Break, and Mr. Dilip Ramesh, co-founder and CTO, Tinkerbell Labs. We are delighted to have such diverse panelists and speakers with diverse experiences, already making this event a participatory and an inclusive engagement. Before I end, I would just like to leave with a quote from Steve Jobs. It's not faith in technology, it's faith in people. And with that, back to you, Utsav.
Thank you, Mr. Suri, for the warm welcome address and for that very apt quote from Steve Jobs. On that note, I would like to request and call upon Mr. Shambi Sharp to please give the introductory remarks. Mr. Sharp is the United Nations Resident Coordinator in India and has devoted more than 25 years of his career to promote inclusive and sustainable development internationally in different roles at the United Nations and also externally working with international nonprofits. Mr. Sharp, it's a pleasure to have you, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Namaste, dear colleagues. Warm greetings to all of the speakers, fellow speakers, panelists, to all the participants who have joined us virtually from across the world. On behalf of the United Nations team in India, all 26 UN agencies and entities on the ground, it's a great honor to be here today to help co-host this side event at the 15th session of the Conference of State Parties to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And it's an honor to do this together jointly with the National Institute of Urban Affairs, with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, and also, of course, with the participation of organizations working on digital inclusion and accessibility for persons with disabilities themselves. I also want to extend, of course, the significant support extended to us by NITI Aayog and by the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports Government of India, and recognize and welcome my UN colleagues and partners in the discussion today, in particular WHO and the UN Partnership on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So I think, colleagues, 15 years have passed now since the landmark UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities was ratified, came into force, and as a result, we have seen considerable progress on disability, both globally and here in India. The 2030 Agenda, for example, focused its promise on leaving no one behind, clearly articulating that without the inclusion, full inclusion of the world's 1 billion persons with disability, this is something around 15% of all the global population, the SDGs will not be achieved. So the SDGs have opened up doors for opportunities, for participation, for the full recognition of persons with disabilities. And I would like to, in this respect, truly commend the government of India for enacting one of the world's most progressive disability laws in the world, the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act of 2016, which recognizes the full spectrum of rights and entitlements and ensures safeguards for the protection of these rights. And we are proud, the UN here, to work with government in terms of helping to translate this legislation into the lived reality for people in their daily lives. Globally, of course, the UN system is committed to the transformative change through the Disability Inclusion Strategy of 2019, embraced by the Secretary General, which accelerates the efforts to include persons with disability in the protection of their rights, both across, within the UN, within our UN operations, as well as across member states through partnership with member states. Yet, colleagues, I think we know, even though we live in the era of the fourth industrial revolution, in an era of rapid urbanization, when it comes to accessible technology and innovations for persons with disabilities, we are lagging behind across the world. And assistive technologies, this really is the key, increasingly, to full inclusion of persons with disabilities in society, in our societies. Truly a precondition for persons with disabilities to be able to achieve equal opportunities and their full participation in the digital age. The potential, of course, is massive. It's huge. The global assistive technology market, for example, is valued at already $22 billion, and this is increasing very quickly. Yet here in India, we do recognize that this potential remains largely untapped. Despite the fact that we have a rapidly growing, very strong private sector, especially in the areas of technologies and digital and services, that we don't yet have sufficient number of domestic suppliers and value chains elaborated to take advantage of this opportunity. And I think let's not forget, colleagues, that some great innovations targeted at helping persons with disability have helped benefit the whole of society. So real synergy between the two. For example, short message service. Many of us may not know that's actually what SMS stands for, was actually created initially to help colleagues, help people with hearing disabilities to communicate more easily amongst themselves and with others. And we see the great benefit to broader society SMS has brought us. And there are many other examples. Thus, I'd like to argue that universal design, that is ensuring the inclusion of persons with disability in all of our design, not just technologies designed specifically for persons with disabilities, but in all of our design process. This should be intrinsic, this should be basic in our industries, in our universities, really changing our culture and our communities. And I think the UN Disability Inclusion Strategy really provides a foundation for that, stressing the twin track of both consulting with organizations of persons with disabilities who best understand their own needs and their own vulnerabilities, following the if for us, then with us approach in everything that we do, to integrating human-centric designs that is informed by user research and lived experience of persons with disabilities. This will allow them to truly contribute fully to national development, all of us together. The WHO-led Global Cooperation on Assistive Technologies, GATE is the acronym, is one very interesting and effective platform to help accelerate this transformation. It brings a focus on 5 interlinked areas, the 5 Ps, as we say. I won't go into details there, but it's about people, policy, products, provision, and personnel. And I encourage everybody on the call to look into that more deeply. I'd also like to highlight some very, very interesting initiatives taking place here in India. The scoping survey on existing ecosystems and policies for assistive technologies in India is underway with the World Health Organization and IIT in Delhi in partnership with UNPRPD. I think this is incredibly important. This survey will be followed by the development of a framework for promoting assistive technologies in India, which we are taking forward together with NITI Aayog, with the Department for Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities and the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. And so that will really help guide the way to tapping that potential of the market as well that I mentioned before. So the event today, in closing, will not only bring a multi-sectoral perspective into our discussions on addressing the unmet needs of and potential of assistive technologies, but also really highlight the intersectoralities, which is the spirit of the SDGs, for example, and really bring that into the core of our policy making. So to conclude, I just wish to say that we know the experience is very clear, the data is clear, that it's only when we benefit fully from all of the skills and the wisdom and the abilities of all people will our families, will our communities and our nations be able to fully prosper. This is the message of the SDGs, and very much look forward to the rest of this discussion to help unpack the way forward. Thank you very much. Bahut dhanyavad.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp, for your eloquent introductory remarks. It was excellent. Indeed, I concur with you. I think we need to focus on a multi-sectoral systemic interventions to promote access to inclusive and accessible technologies and innovations, and it goes for all the countries, especially in India. On that note, we are also joined by our director of the National Institute of Urban Affairs, Mr. Hitesh Vaidya. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. I would like to now invite you to share your thoughts on the subject and NIUA's role in pushing forward the agenda. Over to you, sir.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Greetings from India, as well as from a National Institute of Urban Affairs. We have been using the word National Institute of Urban Affairs, but I just wanted to let you know the National Institute of Urban Affairs is a think tank of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. We are catalyst and nudging the states and cities towards the transformation journey here in India. I extend my very warm welcome to all our eminent speakers and panelists here today. It's a real honor and privilege to speak amongst such a luminaries of the sector. Thank you for joining us and spending your time. And I think the topic of today, which is how do you leverage innovation and technology as enabler for inclusion, is a very, very important topic, because pandemic has already shown us the importance of technology and its power of connecting people and systems and think beyond borders. The mere fact that we are connected here today to discuss something so critical and not having to be in the room is a prime example of power of technology. We all are, Mr. Shompi has very, very nicely articulated the challenges of urbanization, and I don't want to repeat that, but I think if we want to reboot our system, reboot our planet, which COVID-19 has said, we need to manage urbanization, and there is no other choice, because the action will happen in the urban areas only. And for that, we require bold and disruptive innovative actions at multiple fronts. It's not one NIUA when I call it within my thing. We need a multiple think tanks, multiple institutions, collaborative approach, because we all are searching for action, and we all have to join our minds together to move forward. And I think the technology and innovations are the key promises which are emerging to leapfrog and reboot our systems, whether it is for a climate change, whether it is for social execution, whether it's for marginalization. But there is again, there is nothing. Something will emerge from the shuttle, open space shuttle, and we will start working on the solution and innovative ideas. I think the innovative ideas and the solutions will only come from dialogue, deliberations, and discussions. And I think this platform like this is the only way we will reach to some actions, or we all talk about move away from business as usual approach to a new approach, which will emerge from this, because nobody has a magic mantra to really move forward. So I definitely think that we need to really move forward, and technology innovations across cultures has been the increase, been focused on increasing in the connectivity amongst individuals, systems, communities, cities, and nations. And we need to really look at it, how we can harness the technology for our better function, make it more accessible, more affordable to the people at large, but with a focus on people with disabilities. So I think that is the way where we are doing. And I also think that while this excites all of us, that how to use the harness the potential of these technologies, but again, this will not happen in silos. We need to break these silos. We need to move out of these silos, and we need to have create an inclusive culture that encourages diversity of thought, ensuring visibility of ideas and innovations on a global scale when we face with the challenges that bigger than us. We are talking about culture shift. We need to deliberate, again, discuss, debate, and there will be a different thought process. But if we are serious of building back better after COVID and moving away from business as usual approach, then there is no other way than to come up and design this new approach which we want to move forward. I think during the whole discussion, there are so many experts here. They will talk about the problem statements. They will talk about different issues. But I will say, in a country like India, which has almost home about 30 million people with disabilities, common sense dictates that sector like artificial intelligence technologies should prosper and thrive. And that is where we need to really come up and start thinking of what is that, how do we really nurture, or how do we catalyze this demand and supply chains so that people get access to this thing. So we need to start looking at what are the steps we must take, and how do we educate and bring knowledge and make it more available to the people at large, because only technology itself will not be happen, but unless it is make the people's life easier, that is where we need to really figure out. And this integration of this technologies with the solutions across systems and institutions need to have require a lot of capacity building. We need to prepare our cities, prepare the practitioners at the local level. While we have 2015, we had an SDG goals. We are right now left. We need to, still we are talking about SDGs, but how do you build the capacities at the local level so that the practitioners understand the value, they understand that they start imbibing these thoughts within their day-to-day actions. One of the big thing is, while we are talking about leaders, technologies, innovations, I strongly feel that the grammar, the dictionary, or the context, all has to be the dictionary and grammar of cities. The language of these dialogues has to be the language of cities, the language of practitioners. That's the only way when it will have acceptance and moving forward. And that requires not only peer-to-peer learning, contextual research, developing tools and templates, coming up with the standards, and the transfer of knowledge from global to local, and that requires huge effort on the capacities and working with the people at ground and multiple stakeholders together, so we all talk on the same language, same platform, and we all go towards the same outcome which we want out of it. The use of leveraging this technology and innovative ideas to really work for the inclusion and move towards the inclusion, because otherwise, inclusion, sustainability, they have become a big words. We need to contextualize and really define them into a local context. And I hope our project, which is building accessible, safe, inclusive Indian cities program, have managed to touch upon some each and different pathways to mainstream universal access and inclusion in India. But we are just a small thing. We need all your support, all your knowledge, all your guidance to move forward and harness these new opportunities so that we all talk about shaping the future of the cities and are coming up with a new way of managing cities, so that we not only made cities accessible for persons with disabilities, but we make cities accessible to all. And inclusion has to be looked. Once you make a city accessible for disability, it is actually making cities accessible to everyone. And I definitely think that different types of innovations which are emerging will actually help things. And NIUA, we are propagating different types of challenges, smart move challenges, where we can look at it. And we have been also very thankful to UN Resident Coordinator. We are running a Smart Solutions and Inclusive City Award challenge with help of UN Resident Coordinator's Office. So where we are crowdsourcing innovative technological solutions in early and late stages, and coming up with a pan-city solutions to encourage Indian cities to compete on all aspects of inclusion. But again, while closing my remarks, I'll say that while we have been talking about the prophecy which has been talking about that technology will end and the future will create a new dark age, but I think that technology and innovation should really pave the way for the new age cities, which can be proudly hand over to our next generation. We are at the cusp of thing where anything which we will be doing will be affecting our next generation. So what type of planet, what type of culture, what type of thought process we want to hand over is right now in our hands, and there's no other time, because we don't have an option B, we don't have a planet B, and everything has to be done at now. And I think this is the appropriate and opportunate time to really start moving forward to that direction. I thank all of you once again for joining us, and I think today's deliberation and discussion will take us, as Mr. Shompi again said, that unpack some of the solution, some of the ideas, some of the way forward, and I look forward to a deliberation and discussion to move forward. So it not only gives a direction to the sector, but also give a direction to a think tank like us, how to move forward, how to strategize, and how to handle our cities to take this bull by horn approach and move forward. With that, thank you very much for inviting me and giving an opportunity to listen to me. Thank you. Looking forward to your guidance and direction for this in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was wonderful. Thank you for sharing your unique and insightful perspective on the criticality of the urban areas and the larger narrative of creating a more sustainable future for all. And I do sincerely believe that the efforts that we are putting together as an organization is in the right direction. And with partners like UN and everyone else who's on the call today, I think we'll achieve that sooner than later. On that note, I would now like to request Madam Ritu Sen to deliver her keynote address for today's session. Madam Sen is an Indian Administrative Service Officer with a career stretching over 2 decades. She is currently serving as the Director General of the National Anti-Doping Agency, NADA, Department of Sports, Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, Government of India. Prior to this, she was the Director of the Department of School Education and Literacy, Ministry of Education. Ma'am, it's an absolute honor to have you here. And over to you for your remarks.
So, namaste, and thank you, Utkarsh. I really feel honored and privileged to be part of this discussion. The discussion revolves around why do we need innovations and technology to enable inclusion. And I would start with 3 stories of 3 people whom I met when I was working as Director Inclusive Education. And these 3 people are the examples who not only benefited by the help of assistive technology in their life, but also working to empower other lives. So here was a young boy who could not see, who was dependent on his mother for everything all through his childhood. Her mother couldn't go anywhere because she needed to be around her child to read for him, to work for him, to assist him. And then he gets introduced to screen reader, OCR, and such other assistive technologies and devices. And today, this child who was so dependent on, on his mother, is reading newspaper for her, is doing things for her, is getting independent, and not only that, running an organization which is enabling lives of many people like him. The other young boy who could not read, who faced all his life, the challenges of learning difficulty. Reading was like a challenge. And then the assistive technology comes to his help. Immersive reader reads for him. And this child is doing a lot of work, to make this technology available, to make many child read on their own and not, trying to shy away from reading. And the third child who couldn't speak, who had autism, all through his childhood struggled to get some identity, get some acknowledgement. And then he's introduced to the technology, computer, learn to type, and today studying in one of the premier university of the world. So this is why we need technology and innovation, because it not only enables inclusion, it empowers the individual not only to change one's own destiny, but also to facilitate that change for others. So if we are not going to talk about assistive technology and innovations now, then when? Because we don't need only one Moses, we don't need one of these boys to change their life. We need it for many, not only hundreds, thousands, but millions. In a country like India, where we have more than 30 million people with disabilities, and most of them stay in rural areas, we need more than 2 million children with disabilities in schools, and most of them are not able to even reach to class 10th and 12th, we need this to facilitate, to empower, and to enable these lives. Because if we don't do it today, then tomorrow we all will have to take care of it. So for innovations and assistive technology, the role comes in making these lives independent. It helps in mitigating the disability. It helps in, empowering decision making, life choices. And this is all about life. If we see the difference, then what is there in me and a person with different abilities? That I am able to make many choices, which the other person is not. So for me, the whole concept of bringing assistive technology and innovation for inclusion is to enable them to make life choices, to enable them, to take various careers, take various, endeavors, which otherwise they won't have. And I'm very happy that we are moving in a right direction with right kind of policy support, with right kind of legislative framework. We are making a way forward. But all of us will have to come together to actually make it work. And as we say about, India is a big market for consumer goods, India is also a big market for assistive technology. We need to explore this, and we need to, facilitate it wherever it is required. And one more thing which we need to do in whatever we do is that we need to stop, check whatever we are doing, whatever we are designing, whatever we're creating, whether it is infrastructure, policies, products, is it for all? Are we not leaving someone behind? Or whatever we are creating is going to be used by few or by all? So this lens, I think, can be strengthened and implemented with the use of technology. One more thing which I would like to bring here, it's not only about India, but across the world, particularly developing world. This is also a problem of, economic development and empowerment. Once we are able to make people independent, both financially and psychologically, it adds value to the way we develop. It adds value to the way we grow. And when we are able to do it, then that is the actual development, the real development. And I think we all are for it. I would cite some examples by which bringing assistive technology, we could reach that scale, we could reach it, we could upscale many things, we could do things faster. I think the previous speakers have already illustrated that how the technology has brought us all together virtually to talk about these issues from all parts of the world. So in Education Ministry, the platform of Diksha, bringing all the content for all the children with disabilities at one platform. In Ministry of Sports, the policies related to para athletes and providing them equal platform. Similarly, the sign language education content for those who cannot listen. These are like few examples where we could, upscale things. The children with disabilities struggling for exam accommodations. Around 1 million teachers were trained virtually so that they could facilitate that for them. And nearly 0.1 million students could avail those benefits. So since the technology is the factor which not only empowers, but which also reaches faster, which is also, a big equalizer. So if in Delhi I can get something, then in Rajasthan or Meghalaya or Chhattisgarh, I can also use the same. So why shouldn't we leverage this for, enabling inclusion all across? Technology used with inclusive lenses is able to take care of the challenges which the persons with disability faces. If you roam around cities now, you see people with smart canes, you see people with smart gadgets walking around who couldn't walk earlier. So are we making, cities inclusive? Are we creating an infrastructure which is inclusive and accessible? So I think assistive technology and innovation has a great role to play. And I'm very happy that this session is put here and all the perspectives are brought here. And at this occasion, I would also like to urge that the industry partners, the innovation ecosystem stakeholders, the stakeholders in the education system, sports system, and also in healthcare, we all need to come together, because coming together is the key. If we do it together today with the sensitivities required to address these issues, we would have a better tomorrow. And I think we all are interested to have a better tomorrow, not only for us, but for all. And we don't want to leave anybody behind having those opportunities which could help them in transforming their lives. I thank you all here, and I wish that this inclusion, which we think that we need to make it, becomes possible one day. So I stand for inclusion here. Do you? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Sen. That was really inspirational. Thank you for sharing those anecdotes. I think we need to hear more of those. And it was lovely to hear how technology plays such a pivotal part in bringing equity to the way we experience our lives. It is about choices, and the freedom of having a choice makes all the difference in the outcomes that you really have in your life. I think that sets the stage beautifully for our next speaker in line. I would now like to invite Dr. Chapul Kasnabis to set the context by providing a brief overview of the WHO and UNICEF Global Report on Assistive Technology, great, including the report on AT landscape in India and what it means for us. Dr. Kasnabis, before I chime you in, let me just quickly read out a few lines to introduce you. Dr. Kasnabis is the head of the Access to Assistive Technology and Medical Devices Unit under the Access to Medicines and Health Products Division at WHO Geneva. He also launched WHO's Global Cooperation on Assistive Technology, to which Mr. Shah earlier mentioned by the acronym GATE, an initiative to improve access to assistive technology for everyone, everywhere. And Dr. Kasnabis, it's an absolute delight to have you here, and over to you.
Namaskar and distinguished panelists and participants. I'm talking now from Calcutta, my hometown. So there is a lot of noise around, so I seek apology in advance. I share my screen so you can see my presentation. So I'll talk about the global report on assistive technology and India. And here is the cover page of the global report. So access to assistive technology to us is a first step for inclusion. So a girl can access higher education because she has the assistive technology from USA. This man is working in a shopping mall in South Africa. Lady is growing rice in Cambodia. Another lady using her wheelchair, doing all household work like any other girl in the family. And the older lady is very productive and active. We believe that AT changes lives. AT is a life changer for people in need. Now, assistive technology is an enabler for inclusion. You cannot have inclusion without access to assistive technology. Whatever you do in this world, without access to assistive technology, you will not be able to succeed to facilitate inclusion. The global report comes with a massive need in terms of need of assistive technology. We say 2.5 billion now, and more than 3.5 billion by 2050. And if you look that figure in the Indian context, it's 300 million people need assistive products today in India, and nearly more than 400 million by 2050. It is no more, and it is not about 2.1% of disability statistics of India. And this is where everybody has to realize and understand assistive technology assists more people than what we think. We need to change our mindset and unlock the assistive technology from the traditional disability concept and thinking. No industry will come forward if they don't see the bigger market and bigger benefit. And so that we really have to understand the real need and what is the access rate. So demography is changing. If you don't believe me, write down today's date with my note that everyone will need assistive products at some point of their life. As one gets older, they will need, you can't escape unless and until you die early. So assistive technology is very essential as people living longer everywhere, including in India. We need more assistive products, more accessible environment. This whole urban planning has to change, keeping not the 2.1% what you think people need. It's more than 30% population in need. Urban development should be based on the future's need, not yesterday's need. And then I see that in need of access to assistive technology and accessibility is much, much more than any one of us can think of. And if we don't take care today, we'll have a disaster tomorrow. So the prevalence of need for assistive technology, we have seen increases with the age, more assistive products. But in many countries, it is as less as 3% of the population in need have access to assistive technology. You go to the West, all older people, most of them are independent, safe, they are doing their things. But in coming to India, the transport is not accessible. Buildings are not designed like this. So they're dependent. And a huge population is out from the production or productive market. So we have to really think. Don't look at only those disabled people you can see on the street. Look at them in your own house, old parents and others, and see what's the need and how it has to be addressed. As UN President has mentioned, that we have to look at this as a whole ecosystem. We have to have a policy, people-centered policy, product, provision, and personnel. If we don't address the whole ecosystem, whatever we'll do will not benefit the majority. So think beyond, and this 5P is a really roadmap for making a change. We are really looking at India to set up a national assistive technology policy and program. Sabka Pass, like Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Prayas, Sabka Vishwas. We need to have a massive national program with Sabka Pass. We can ensure that everybody, irrespective of where they live, irrespective of their socioeconomic condition, irrespective of their health condition, if they need, they have access to assistive technology. That's the dream. That's the mission we should all cherish. So key messages, how you can have it. You have to understand we need to innovate and we need to invest. We have evidence that when you invest $1 in assistive technology, you get $9. So it's not a stupid game. It's not doing something good or charity. It makes a sense, business sense. Country's GDP will grow if we invest in assistive technology. So it's a time for paradigm shift. Charity to human rights. universal access. Disability, charity, doing good things, distributing this here and there, it will not help anybody. It's not helping India at all. And we have to look beyond disability and traditional assistive products like those wheelchairs, tricycles. The market is much huge and much larger. So we have to open and enable the market. You have to ensure startups to market and global market. It should not only get locked down within domestic market. It will not be sustainable. There's a whole world is waiting for these products. So look at the export market. And last but the least, emergence of digital technology. India is a mother of digital technology, which is creating new opportunities. So we need to embrace IT, and digital assistive technology should be the future. So why India? We say that India is the global pharmacy. WHO says India is a hub, global hub for medicine, vaccines, medical devices, information technology. Then why not assistive technology? You have all the basic ingredients needed for the sector to succeed in India and also to the world. You have Invest India, you have National Rural Health Program, you have Skills India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, Alimco, Make in India, everything is there. But what is missing is mainstreaming assistive technology in these sectors. So this is where we need to see an assistive technology landscape in India, which UN, India, and WHO has started the work, and NITI Aayog has kindly taken it up. So we see a great future, and we really need India. I'm saying this not because I'm an Indian. I'm saying this from the global perspective, that we need India to come in a big way in manufacturing and supplying assistive products, developing the knowledge, transferring that knowledge to Africa, low middle income countries around the world. If you can train people how to do math, how to do computer science, you can also train them how to do assistive technology provision more appropriately. So we are with you, and we are really looking forward to get more support from India in coming years to develop the assistive technology sector for India and also for the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kasnabis. That was a really, really eloquent presentation. I think it throws a lot of light on the opportunities that assistive technology in India currently presents. And I think we should all wake up to it and think the business opportunities with AT are something that we need to tap into. Totally agreed on most of the points there. Now, I think that presentation sets up the panel discussion beautifully. I think all of our guest speakers have given us the context that we need to deliberate and ponder upon. With those thoughts and those questions in our minds, let me just quickly move to our panel discussion for the day. So we have an illustrious panel today. I'll quickly sort of run through everyone's name and a brief introduction for them. To start with, we have Mr. Ankit Rajiv Jindal. Ankit is a person with vision disability, and he has an illustrious career spanning over 15 years, encompassing high impact initiatives at the corporate and the social sector. Currently, he's a marketing advisor for NTT Data and also the founder of Friends for Inclusion, a cross-disability not-for-profit organization, and Cigna AI, a digital sign language translator. Welcome, Ankit. Thank you for joining us. Next up, we have Ms. Nidhi Goyal. Nidhi is the founder and executive director of Rising Flame, which is a national award-winning nonprofit organization. She is a disabled feminist activist working on disability rights and gender justice through an intersectional approach. She was also the global advisor to UN Women's executive director. Nidhi, it's an absolute delight to have you join us today. Next up, we have Ms. Ankita Rajesh Shirudaria. Ankita leads the assistive technology vertical at Social Alpha. Her team has evaluated over 600 startups in the space and has curated multiple grant challenges to blend financing instruments to make products more accessible to persons with disability. Ankita, thank you so much for being here. Next up, we have Ms. Shilpi Kapoor. She needs no introduction for those who are working in this space, but for the sake of harmony, I will introduce her to everyone. Shilpi is an accessibility evangelist and an Ashoka Fellow. She is a serial entrepreneur and has founded Barrier Break, 247 Accessible Documents, and Newshook. She is also the recipient of Women Transforming India Awards 2019 by Niti Aayog, and the top 20 most powerful women in business in India for the year 2017 by the Business Today magazine. Shilpi, it is an absolute honor to have you on board as part of the panel. Lastly, we have Mr. Dilip Ramesh. Dilip is an alumnus of BITS Pilani, Goa. He is the co-founder and CTO of Tinkerbell Labs, which is working on making education more inclusive. They have developed Annie, the world's most comprehensive braille literacy for the visually impaired. Dilip, thank you so much for taking the time out and for being here. Now I am looking at the clock. Before we start, I think we roughly have about 26 minutes before the end of, beg your pardon, we have 24 minutes left. So what I would do is I'll request everyone to stick to a 5-minute time limit since we have 5 people speaking. So diving right into the panel discussion, I think what I'll do is I'll start with Ankit first. Ankit, the question that I have for you, you have often referred to technology as a frenemy of people with disabilities. Interesting word. Could you please explain why? Ankit, we are not able to hear you.
Ankit, you're mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Is this you?
Perfect.
Thank you, Utkarsh. So, so Utkarsh, my relationship with technology really dates back 17 years. That's twice as long as I've been married. And one thing that I can kind of strike common between both this relationship is they both are very complicated. Now, jokes apart, of course, technology, I've been a big fanboy of technology. Today, I say whatever I have become, be it my successes at the corporate or my contribution in the developmental sector, a lot of it can be attributed to the advances in the technology. I've grown from really an experimental novice who tried technology just for the fun sake to somebody who used it on a daily basis for his productivity at workplace or even to kind of pursue his higher education, to someone who has started evangelizing the use of technology for people with disabilities and also promoting with startups. And now, audaciously enough, I'm also trying to build a solution for the disability community. So it's evolved, and yet over the years, I call this, in spite of all the fanboy and the love for the technology, I still call it a frenemy. Now, why do I call it a friend, right? Now, we all know frenemy is a combination of two terms, friend and enemy. Now, for friend, I think it needs no introduction. Like there is a lot of our co-panelists have earlier spoken about how technology enables the lives of people with disabilities. For me, it has done 3 major things. One, it has given me competence, right? Technology opened doors to acquire new skills. It helped me learn new things. It gave me opportunity to be educated, which ultimately enabled me to be gainfully employed. As a result, I was not dependent or a drag in the society or on the economy. Number 2, technology helped me offer daily convenience, which made me more confident. Now, be it ordering food online on an online food ordering app, or maybe getting my groceries or hailing a cab, there's a lot of small and big things which, for many other non-disabled people, you will find it trivial. But for a people with disabilities and someone who didn't have access to technology in earlier part of his life, I would say a lot of them became transformational for me. And these small conveniences, when they became accessible, it increased my confidence overall. And number 3, it helped break silos, not only for me, but for thousands of people with disabilities. And I think COVID is a very good example how technology, thanks to technology, be it disabled or non-disabled, we all were able to kind of be employed. Especially when you talk about people with disabilities, platforms like Zoom, WhatsApp have become very important to establish a communication line between the deaf and the non-deaf community, and also, for people like us who use screen readers now, thanks to its accessibility, we didn't kind of experience breakage or kind of a disconnect during the COVID-19. But at the same time, while I might go on with the praises of the of technology for endless hours, I am also very cognizant of its shortcomings. And especially when we talk about technology as an enemy, I say there are 2 or 3 areas when I say, when it becomes or when it acts like an enemy for me. When technology is not designed for people with disability, and I'm not just talking about software technology, but talk about even simpler things like a coffee machine. When it got replaced at my workplace, it was all touch enabled, no assistive, no haptic and touch. That made me dependent on technology, dependent on others. Number 2, when it restricts my choices, like when I'm forced to, okay, if there are 5 apps in the market and I can only use one because that's the only app which is accessible for people with disabilities, it makes me frustrated and kind of be very agitated.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you. You have about a minute left.
Sure, I'll just quickly wrap up. And the third point, of course, is the fact that technology, when it is slapped as a panacea for everything, so when instead of really making improvements in the accessibility or the environment, I've been told that, use technology and it will solve your problem. So, technology is great, but it can definitely not be a solution for everything. Now, very quickly, if I talk about how do we improve the whole ecosystem, I think the one thing I want, there are a few points I have quickly talk about. We need to shift the narrative, as Dr. Customs also spoke about. We need to really move away from the narrative of disability and welfare to business and empowerment. We need to ask whether we are leaving people with disabilities. If you are a product developer, if you are a startup, ask how your product can be used by people with hearing disabilities, seeing disabilities, or those who have difficulty using their limbs. You need to start engaging people with disabilities across all spectrum of product life cycle, from development to anything. For government, you need to increase capacity, build more awareness, and increase incentives. On that note, I'll take a pause and I look forward to hear my other co-panelists. Thank you, Utkarsh.
Thank you, Ankit. Very insightful. Without taking too much time, let me quickly jump to Nidhi. Nidhi, the question that I have for you is, what are the gendered impacts of accessible and inaccessible technologies and innovations? Something that you have observed and something that you have worked with.
Thank you so much for the question, and it's really an honor being here. A quick image description. I am an Indian woman in my mid-30s wearing a red blazer, black top, and earphones, speaking to you through Zoom. Just to also start with thinking about gender, right? Intersectionality has been highlighted within the UN CRPD, Article 6 and otherwise. Within SDGs, Goal 5 talks about gender equality and leaving no one behind. And what that really means when we think about other goals is really important, particularly when it comes to technology and innovations. It's important to note that if we look at the data, gender ownership of technology is much lower. Then how does this technology and innovation become an enabler as well as when it comes to women with disabilities, or at the intersection of gender and disability, how the inaccess to technology creates further barriers? Somebody mentioned before, one of the dignitaries, that it's about choice. And I think for technology and innovation, when it comes to gender and disability, it's about choice, it's about safety, it's about independence, dignity, which all are a component to inclusion, right? So just to think some quick examples that I can fire around what we're looking at when we talk about independence. A simple thing like Google Maps. We're looking at a technology which everything or an app that everybody takes for granted. What that does to women with disabilities, often women with disabilities, by the account of their multiple identities, undergo a very rigorous issue at home in society. They're stigmatized, but also they're overprotected within households, overprotected within families, within societies, and their capabilities are dismissed. What this map does is allows or enhances their mobility more than other people with disabilities, because that becomes a negotiation for them to step out of the house and to further encourage their mobility and families to challenge that kind of notion. What accessible taxi apps do for women with disabilities is that they start from a negotiating point of sharing rights around the question of safety of women with disabilities, saying you're traveling alone, you cannot see, you cannot move away from a vulnerable situation. What if we have to reach you and where you are? So these kind of accessible technology or digital apps become like a starting point to challenge some of the stigma that women with disabilities face. Further to add what Ankit was mentioning around independence. And independence comes across disabilities through accessible technology. And I just don't mean digital internet-based solutions, but also technology in general. For what this independence does is it has linkage with violence and safety. What independence does for women with disabilities when they are able to shop for their groceries and essentials is that it destigmatizes the idea that women with disabilities are not women enough and they cannot play some of the roles that are expected of them. Challenging gender roles is a second layer, but even initially to dispel some of that stigma and have that independence to access this kind of shopping and essentials. What does all of this do? This also enhances the concept of privacy. As you know, in the world, within gender groups, within disability groups, we've been talking about privacy. And we've been talking about access and how that comes together for women with disabilities is through some of this. When you have inaccessible banking websites, something which would fall in the enemy bucket of what Ankit said, but also then you have accessible payment gateways. It reduces the vulnerability of women with disabilities. You know that women are vulnerable to higher financial control in patriarchal setups. And what accessible payment gateways would do is that they would have the power to spend. The spending power also brings another equality power within the gender balance or corrects the imbalance.
Nidhi, you have about 1 minute.
A minute, yes. We're thinking about this, but what happens to access to technology in low resource settings? And we particularly, and one of the recommendations quickly is that in the COVID report that Rising Flame published in collaboration with Sightsavers, we saw that in low resource setting where technology is scarce, if there were 2 children and one was non-disabled, the non-disabled child got a priority on online education. If there were 2 children with disabilities, the male disabled child got a priority over the female disabled child. Gender brings this gap in accessing technology. We do not have the data around gender ownership of technology. Privacy and autonomy become a big question when simple antigen tests of COVID cannot be taken at home by people with disabilities. But even then, for women with disabilities, something as simple as accessible for other women like pregnancy kits are not accessible. So women's bodies and choices have always been controlled, and a few simple solutions around technology or a few steps to add to what Ankit has said and our other dignitaries have also said and other co-panelists will add is we need local solutions so that technologies are affordable. I have a white cane which costs 3,500 rupees and is available in India. And if that could be modified, it would be 1/10 the cost, right? Innovations to support low resource and low connectivity regions, broaden the understanding of technology to go beyond internet apps, but also to include things which are of everyday use, like pregnancy kits, like DTH, like televisions, washing machines, and so on. And then finally have data and concrete data incorporating intersectionality and how that plays within this access to technology and who is the innovation being thought about, just to ensure and reiterate that we do not create the inaccessibilities or we do not create the physical or mimic the physical world into the digital and technology space and enhance inclusion for people with disabilities.
Thank you, Nidhi. That was really, really insightful. I think thank you for helping us sort of see the intersectionalities of how technology and products sort of proliferate or help you overcome disabilities or vulnerabilities in the city and the built environment that we live in. Thank you so very much. Let me quickly jump over to Ankita. Ankita, in a sector traditionally dominated by philanthropy, how are startups changing the narrative and how has it changed in the recent past over, let's say, over the last decade or so?
Thanks, Utsav. So when we say that the sector is traditionally dominated by philanthropy, I essentially mean that a lot of the assistive technology distributed in the country today is paid for by somebody else rather than the user. It is being paid for by either a philanthropic organization or it has been paid for by a charitable institution. And what essentially happens is, say, two things. One is the whole mindset. When we look at persons with disability with the mindset of somebody that you want to do charity for, it instantly alienates them. It instantly shows that we consider them as somebody other, somebody who needs to be helped, somebody who cannot take care of themselves. And the situation will not change. And in perpetuity, we'll be doing the same thing again and again. And the second thing that happens is, because it's a philanthropic organization with great intentions trying to help persons with disability, what happens is that they prioritize reaching as many people as possible. And unfortunately, what happens is things like quality take a backseat. And apart from quality, also things like customizations take a backseat. There'll be very few philanthropists who will be able to distribute customizable solutions to the users. This has led to a couple of things. So a recent study showed that 80% of assistive technology distributed in the country is abandoned. So neither is somebody able to use the technology, nor is the money being put to good use. And I think technology can completely change this. And we've been in the assistive technology space for the last 5 years. And we've been evaluating startups who have come up with great products, very, very affordable, if not matching the price point, just a little bit above. But a lot of these products are customizable. They reach out to the users. A lot of the products have been made with a lot of feedback from the users. We've seen products, one of our portfolio companies started off as an app to help people stutter less or to correct their stuttering. And now they operate in over 120 countries. It is based in India. It is a very affordable app. It's a profitable business. We think that these are the stories of, in some sense, these are modern fairy tales, but I think we need to make these a lot more common and, bring them to the popular culture. All in all, I think I'll keep it short, but my point is assistive technology needs to become market driven. I think Dr. Kasnab has also said that India can become a global hub for assistive technology and can market their product in India as well as Africa and to the rest of the world. A couple of things can help, and I think this is good news or some upward trends for this. A lot of these startups have great user feedback. They interact with their users periodically. They take care of concerns such as privacy. They're forthcoming with customizations. And with enough usage and encouragement from the government, I think they can also become very, very affordable. So while the whole philanthropic route continues to go on, I think we should not rely just on them, and also create an ecosystem within our cities and institutions to support startups and support innovation in assistive technology.
Thank you, Ankita. I think well said. I think we need to understand the potential of AT that presents in India. I think there's a lot that we can do, and Dr. Kasnab's observation of $1 for $9 worth of return is definitely worth looking at in a lot of different ways. Thank you for that, Ankita. I think I'll quickly hop on to the next panelist, Shilpi. Shilpi, the question that I have for you is, what are the challenges faced by social entrepreneurs, since you have been one for a very long time, in especially addressing the needs for accessible, scalable, affordable, and quality assured tech-enabled products and innovations? And what in your ways are the practical sort of pathways where we can promote inclusive and accessible innovations in our country?
Firstly, thank you for having me here, Utsav, and thank you for moderating this so well. So I think I'm just going to jump in and really talk about entrepreneurs and not social entrepreneurs. A lot of the solutions that Ankit or Nidhi spoke about were actually mainstream solutions that they were using. The key for entrepreneurship and assistive technology and the intersectionality of that is going to be taking a lot of assistive solutions into mainstream technology, because we can see that getting to people with disabilities within the marketplace is not an easy solution, right? It's not an easy task at all. I just had the earlier panelists speak about philanthropic organizations distributing a lot of this assistive technology. That does not create a marketplace at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, a startup really wants revenue. They want to be able to meet their customers. They want to be able to sell directly to them rather than have to wait whether it's a government funding, whether it's a charitable thing, or whatever is that route to get to money. At the end of the day, the economics of it has to work, right? So for us, I think the most important thing for all of us to realize is, firstly, we need to, in the context of smart cities, right, as well as using technology within smart cities as a whole, we need to first look at what is the existing technology already there within our solutions. And we have to ensure that our vendors who are making these solutions also understand that they can use and adapt some of those. Because remember, we're not talking about only assistive technology in isolation when it comes to smart cities. There's going to be so much technology out there that you and I are going to have to use, which we need to be able to get access to, which does not always mean technology which is in the hands of a disabled person that they are using themselves. But this is, shared technology that you and I as citizens go out and go and use, whether it is buying a ticket at, a metro station. We need to have that to be accessible. So I think what we're really looking for is for entrepreneurs to see that value. And I think it will be very important for organizations like NIUA to go out and educate the vendor ecosystem that wants to look at the smart city phenomena and help them understand how to integrate assistive technology. I'm not taking away from the assistive technology that's being created for people with disabilities. That is one part of the story. But there is so many features that can be built into existing products, right? Like as Ankit said, even if you've got a coffee machine, it needs to be accessible, right? And it needs to be inclusive. I think we need to bridge that gap. So as much as I believe that there is a market for an accessible assistive technology only ecosystem, I think the integrated ecosystem is what's more interesting when it comes to smart cities. And that's where we'll be able to make a dent, because we won't be sitting on a separated run for only people with disabilities. The other thing is that we need to educate people on universal design and accessibility, right? And those two need to come up to the forefront, which means that NIUA kind of organizations need to go out and teach our future practitioners all of this information, so that the tech of tomorrow starts to already have some of this in place, rather than doing the retrofitting that we are doing today. So I think for us, that's going to be the shift. And I'll give my next panelist some time and I'll stop there in the interest of time.
Thank you, Shilpi. That's very kind of you. And I do completely agree with you. I think the ecosystem needs to be primed for it to be able to do the best that it can. And I think knowledge is a really, really good pathway for that to happen really soon. And thank you for chalking out the priorities for us. I think we definitely are looking in that direction. Without taking too much of time, I think it'll be injustice to give Dilip any less time than other speakers. Dilip, but I would really appreciate if you could keep it to a couple of minutes. Dilip, the question that I have for you is that Tinkerbell Labs is one of the very, very few companies that has seen success in some sense when it comes to developing assistive technology for persons with disability. Now, firstly, why do you think that is the case, and what is your perspective on it? And what were the challenges that you faced specifically as a company, and how have you gone past it, and how have you commercialized yourself? I know it's a mouthful of question, but brevity will be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Utsav. Well, it's an honor being here. Before I answer your questions, just want to give some context of who we are and what we do. So Thinkable Labs is a startup from Bengaluru. We just turned 6 last week, and we're in the space of inclusive education. Our flagship product, Annie, is the world's most comprehensive braille literacy device. It will help you learn how to read, write, and type in braille on your own. So the problem that we're trying to solve is that of low braille literacy. It has direct correlation with employability in their future as well. And even in a country like the USA, braille literacy rates are less than 10% So even though you have infrastructure in Braille all around you, that's of no use if people can't read in Braille. So that's a problem that we are trying to solve. There isn't a lot of tech in this space, and he just got a patent granted a month back. So it's a very unique product that we have. How far we've come along so far? We're in 16 plus states in the country. We have 50 plus smart classes. We call it any smart class that is deployed in special schools for the blind, and we're also exporting to multiple countries. We have a partnership with American Printing House for the Blind in the USA. They're a very old organization among the top among assistive tech organizations in the world. We have changed the product from Annie to Polly, and Annie being named after Helen Keller's teacher, who's Anne Sullivan. We also have Polly, who's another teacher of Helen Keller, who's Polly Thompson. So it's called Polly in the USA, and very happy to share that in the upcoming academic year, a lot of visually impaired students in the US will be using Polly to learn Braille. That's who we are and how far we've come. Talking about the challenges, I mean, success, talking about success, yeah, it's great and an honor to hear that word about our organization. But I think one thing that's really helped for us is being resilient. It's been a long journey, and we're starting to see the fruits of it all right now, but there's still a long way to go. But resilience is something that I would put all of this against. The other thing about challenges in this space is it all revolves around being a category creator. Before Annie came up and we started working on this concept of Annie Smart Class, Braille Smart Class, so Smart Class for visually impaired was unheard of. A lot of aspects like Braille-based education, Braille-based games, competitive collective learning, things that we typically take for granted in education technology has been missing completely for the visually impaired in the last 3-4 decades. So all of these things were built from scratch in a very niche space. So establishing credibility took us a lot of time and a lot of effort as well. We've had very elaborate field trials to build this credibility aspect. We've had premier organizations sort of give us recommendation letters and things like that, which we've used to build credibility over a period of time. We also have a two-pronged problem. I think Ankita from Social Alpha was talking about it, where the user is not necessarily the person who's paying for the assistive devices, which means it sort of takes time to build confidence among all of these people and address their needs and demands and get to a consensus amongst it all. Then finally, it's a very sparse market when we do talk about reaching disabled people with visual impairments who are our users. There's also a lot of difficulty in finding the right data because there isn't a lot to go on with from prior art. So a lot of it, every day you're working on things that has not been done before, and you're trying to find data that doesn't currently exist in proper crystallized manner. So a lot of effort goes into these aspects, which increases the time to market. So any new thing that you come up with takes a lot more time and effort to get it in the hands of people. Overall, I think we are trying to increase the efficiency, reach, and quality of education for the visually impaired. We started on a great journey, but long way to go, I'm sure.
Thank you, Dilip. Absolutely. I think you all have our absolute admiration for the work that you're doing, and we wish you very well for all the things that are coming your way. That being said, unfortunately, I think we have eaten into the time for the Q&A, and due to the paucity of it, we will not be able to take any questions from the audience, but please don't be demotivated. We are keeping a close eye on the chat box and the Q&A window, so please feel free to park all your questions there. And I will also ask some of my team members in the background to drop in our email address, which is thebasicproject@niua.org. In the chat box, you can write to us with your feedback. And if you have any specific questions for the panelists, we can direct it to them. But that being said, I would like to give my admiration and absolute gratitude to all the panelists for such an engaging and a knowledge-packed remark and insights from each of their allocated time. That brings us to the very last line item for today's session, which is to call upon Ms. Shrirupa Mitra to deliver her closing remarks for this session. Ms. Mitra is a program specialist at the Technical Secretariat of the UN Partnership on the Rights of Persons with Disability and is based at the UNDP headquarters in New York. Prior to this, she worked at the UNICEF headquarters supporting UNICEF's global work on inclusive education. Shrirupa, it's an absolute delight to have you, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Utsav. And it's a great pleasure. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. It's been an absolute pleasure for me to participate in this discussion, to hear your thoughts and views. on behalf of the UN Partnership on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which, as you have heard, has been partnering with the UN in India, with the NIUA, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. And I would like to thank the organizers of this event, the partners that have been part of this program, Barrier Break, as well as Social Alpha, for putting together what I think was an absolutely fascinating discussion this morning. I think all of the panelists have highlighted some critical points. And for me, it was interesting to see the multi-stakeholder nature of the panelists and the distinguished opening speakers. Mr. Shambi Sharp, the UN resident coordinator, raised the importance of the UN Disability Inclusion Strategy and the commitment that the Secretary General has made to driving the agenda for inclusion ahead as part of the SDGs and the Leaving No One Behind agenda. And at the outset, I must say the access to assistive technology is a key enabler and key requirement if the UNDIS is to be implemented, if the SDGs are to be achieved for all. And the UNDIS, as Mr. Shambi Sharp mentioned, covers both the operations of the UN, how does the UN become a more inclusive organization, and also our programs and our support to member states to enable more accessible and inclusive environments whereby people with disabilities can participate on an equal basis with others. So perhaps maybe I'll just reiterate, I think, some of the important points that I heard today, which also from the perspective of the partnership where I work, which brings together 9 UN agencies and has supported joint programs across more than 75 programs across the world. Firstly, I think there's much to be learned from the experience in India. We've been fortunate to partner with the UN in India since 2014 in a first program, and then the current program where there has been work on smart cities, as well as the creation and the processes for the development of an 80 roadmap for India. Important points, I think, that I heard, and I think that would be good for all of us to take back with us, which I certainly will take back, to our work, but also, in our discussions with other countries as well, is the importance of user-centered and human-centric design, the importance of co-designing AT, the importance of universal design of all assistive technologies, whether or not they're focused on people with disabilities or the broader population. We've seen the tremendous demand and need and the huge gap that currently exists in the market in terms of access to assistive technology and the need for this kind of a multi-stakeholder, as well as a cross-sectoral and a market-driven approach that will be required, that we need to look at, not just in the context of India, where I think we could be a global thought leader, we could be a market leader, but also in the broader global discussions around assistive technology. We also heard the important elements of intersectionality and how that is critical to put at the center of this discussion in terms of access to safe, appropriate, as well as affordable assistive technology. So I would highly emphasize that we build these lessons from India and we take them to other countries. From the side of the UN partnership, where we're bringing together 9 UN agencies, as well as our partner governments and organizations of people with disabilities, we will take these learnings and help disseminate, as well as bring back to India, I think, the learnings that we're getting from the other countries. And I think important points were raised about international cooperation, particularly South-South cooperation. So from the side of the UN partnership, we very much stand committed to furthering this knowledge exchange and exchange of skills. But also, we very much look forward under future funding windows of the UN partnership to be able to, again, work more closely with the government of India and the organizations of people with disabilities, as well as the private sector. With that, and with the sincere thanks and to the organizers, as well as, I think, the incredibly valuable insights that were shared by all of the panelists and speakers today, I think we can close this meeting.
Thank you, Srirupa. That was delightful. Thank you for your very eloquent and very succinct closing remarks. I think you have beautifully captured the essence of the meeting today and put together the points for us to work on. That being said, before we call it a wrap, may I request everyone on the call to quickly sort of switch on their camera so that we can, since we are connected virtually, it's hard to take a picture. So someone in the background is going to quickly take a screenshot. All right, thank you so very much. It is officially a wrap. Thank you once again to our dignitaries, panelists, and to the wonderful participants who have been patient with us. And until we meet again, please stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll reach out to you soon. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.